and center of this election is the political identity of Indonesia. Why is it so?
Well, there are these two sides, and in 2014, they really sort of represented different directions for Indonesia. Prabowo, a much more firm, some would say authoritarian direction. Jokowi, a much more easygoing democratic direction. But this year, it's much more about political identity. Prabowo is backed by a number of Islamic conservatives. He's seen as the candidate of Islamic conservatives, even though he himself is not particularly religious. Jokowi also has some Islamic conservatives in his camp, but he's seen as the standard bearer for a more easygoing sort of Islam that really dominates most of the archipelago.
There's been a rise of political Islam. Is this election a gauge of that?
I mean, some would argue that it is, but it's difficult to tell because Jokowi has sought to co-opt a number of Islamic conservatives. He appointed an Islamic cleric, Ma'ruf Amin, very senior Islamic cleric, a very conservative one, as his running mate, to sort of complicate the issue and make a number of Muslims who might feel uncomfortable voting for Jokowi feel a little bit more comfortable voting for him. And on the other hand, Prabowo is known now to not be a particularly religious individual, and that's complicated his narrative as well.
It does seem like politics in Indonesia is leaning more to the right. What does it mean for a young democracy like Indonesia?
It's, I mean, we're only 21 years into this democratic experiment in Indonesia. And so I think it's a complicated question to answer. We don't know what the results will throw up today. One of the big questions is how will holding the legislative and presidential elections on the same day for the first time, how will that affect how the parliament behaves in the future? Will there be more cohesive political parties? Will a few parties dominate parliament that are associated with the presidential ticket standard bearers? That could change Indonesian politics as well. But after today, we're really venturing into the unknown because of the changes to the electoral system and the changes in the political system that we've seen the last 2 years.
The big question really is whether the country can be united, whether Prabowo is the president, whether Jokowi is the president. Is it realistic to think that this country can be united given the big divide right now?
Well, I mean, there are these grassroots groups that feel very strongly about the election. Some of them say that they'll come out onto the streets after the election. It's sort of unclear whether or not that'll actually happen, whether there's funding to support long-term protests that could be destabilizing. Right now, it doesn't seem that there is. But at the elite level, most of the elites, regardless of which side they're on, they've done business together, they went to school together, and they'll say privately behind closed doors that they're happy to do a deal.
But having said that, though, Aaron, reconciliation is a very difficult thing. We've seen that happen in Thailand. It's still struggling for reconciliation. I mean, how is Indonesia different?
Well, I think civil society activists are worried about this. They say, all right, fine, the elites know each other and they're happy to do deals with each other, but you sort of let the cat out of the bag. It's very difficult to put the very emotional feelings about this race back into the box. And so at the grassroots level, it's not clear that those feelings can be controlled in the way that the elites believe they can control them.